It's a reverse by Steve Bono, who's running away from the entire field. Nobody saw him. This is unbelievable. Holy. A most remarkable development.
40-yard dash.
Steve Bono.
Marcus Dash. 40-yard dash. Marcus Dash. 40.
Marcus Dash.
Marcus Dash. 40-yard dash. Marcus Dash.
To run the 40. Marcus Dash.
Welcome back to Running the 40. I'm your host, Marcus Dash. This week, we were talking to former NFL quarterback Steve Bono. He spent the better part of his career with the San Francisco 49ers as Joe Montana and Steve Young's backup, then went on to become the Kansas City Chiefs starting quarterback, leading them to a division title and earning AFC Player of the Year honors. He now serves as the alumni coordinator with the San Francisco 49ers. We touch on a variety of topics, including his conflict in this past year's Super Bowl, the impact of baseball on today's NFL quarterbacks, and how the 49ers will bounce back from the Super Bowl loss. Take a look. Hey, everybody. I'm here with former Pro Bowl quarterback Steve Bono, former Kansas City Chiefs quarterback and 49ers, and Packers as well. I'm forgetting somewhere.
A bunch. Pittsburgh, Carolina, Green Bay, St. Louis. Yeah, you mentioned the other ones.
I want to say thank you for coming on. Growing up, I had older brothers, and they were big fans of Steve Bono. One of the jerseys actually got handed down to me was a champion Steve Bono jersey right here.
Very, very good.
I'm an avid jersey collector, and this is one of the first ones I had as a kid. So,
wow.
I finally grown into it. But how have you been doing over these past few months here?
Doing fine. As I'd like to say, healthy and trying to stay that way.
Yeah. At this point, that's all anyone can hope for at this point. So staying healthy and kind of staying. Yeah. Now we have football coming up, and the sports are coming back slowly. So we're slowly returning to normalcy. Slowly. Yeah.
Baseball's been fun to watch since it's come back. Golf is actually I've actually enjoyed golf. Probably shouldn't say this without fans there, because you can really see the golf course. Mm-hmm. Like, normally you can't see the errant shots that you might hit, that I might hit. And no fan stopping an errant shot. No, but it's actually been fun to watch golf without the fans there.
Yeah, and I'll say like some of the sports like baseball, they implement the crowd noise and stuff. And I gotta say, I think I'm a bigger fan. I mean, I want to see how it plays out, but I think I'm a bigger fan of the 60-game season. I think that's going to – you're already seeing early on, you have all these teams who are 8-11, and that's pretty solid, and they can vie for a playoff spot right now. And I think everyone's just kind of – you're seeing closers lose their jobs already, and that usually happens at 40 games in, not 10 games in. So
right, that's true. I know Farhan Zaidi here in San Francisco is he's a transaction man to begin with, so I think he likes this. Give them 4 games, and if they don't produce, you're out. Bring somebody else up.
Yeah, right.
Well, San Francisco struggled last year. Have a bunch of young guys playing, so he's. He was moving people quickly last year and kind of doing the same this year.
Yeah, you're seeing that with the Detroit Tigers. They brought up Casey Mize and one of their other prospects, which they probably wouldn't have brought up if it wasn't a short season like this. So the young bucks are actually getting a little more playing time this year.
Yeah, those top 10 prospects are definitely going to get a chance. I would think on pretty much every team.
Yeah, and that's another thing. That's another wrinkle. It's kind of fun to watch this year,
Yeah.
Let's talk about football here. This is first question. You kind of had a unique connection to both teams that were in the Super Bowl last year. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this past Super Bowl. Since you have a huge tie to both teams. You played for the 49ers for 5 seasons and are currently alumni coordinator for the Niners. And
correct.
For the team for about 3 seasons, I believe. And you earned a Pro Bowl victory and took the team to the playoffs. Or not Pro Bowl victory. You went to the Pro Bowl. Did you have a rooting interest in the game, or were you just kind of happy either way?
I mean, honestly, I did, and it was the 49ers. Only, because I've worked for them for the last 18 years. So went there for the 49ers. I think I can answer the question best with someone that asked me a question as they were walking out of the stadium, a Chiefs fan, and he said to me, Steve, he said, you have to be a little bit happy. And I said, because obviously I had a 49er shirt on, and I said, honestly, I am. I said, none of us could get it done. Patrick Mahomes got it done, and I was happy for him. Happy for the Hunt family, happy for the whole organization.
And playing in the city for 3 years, I'm sure that was just nice to finally give that to the city. Finally gets that.
Yeah, and I digress for a second and say I'm very happy for Andy Reid, who's a great guy and deserved to win a championship. The city's been obviously starved for it for 50 years, and it is truly a fanatical fan base. There's not much better a place to play than Arrowhead Stadium, if there is, or as tough a place to play for an opposing team.
And that's one thing, the Chiefs, after 50 years, they finally won a Super Bowl this year. And for it to come against the 49ers of all teams,
Yeah.
the kind of the links in history, I have it written down here.
Yeah.
So you had early 80s Chiefs got Steve DeBerg, who played with the 49ers. Wasn't a trade. He ended up playing with the Chiefs a couple years later. And obviously
Right.
Montana being traded from San Fran to Casey. Then 2 years later, you were traded from San Fran to Casey. A few years later after that, Elvis Grbac went from backing up Steve Young to signing with the Chiefs. And then 2014, Alex Smith. So, it kind of continues. What do you make of this connection between these two teams? It's so interesting. I've never noticed a connection this deep before.
Well, I can say that for Joe, me, Elvis, and in a lot of ways, even Alex, because Andy was already there. The connection really was the West Coast offense. Joe, me, Elvis, Paul Hackett was the offensive coordinator, running his version of the West Coast offense, and Andy Reid obviously running his version, and bringing Alex there. The Iceman, Steve DeBerg, I'm not exactly sure what that connection was back then. And I've even heard of someone else, but it went in reverse, that they played for the Chiefs first, then they played for the 49ers. I forget who it was, but somebody before the Super Bowl mentioned that to me. I don't remember who it was. I would say it was mostly the connection of the West Coast offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that's the fact that the West, it shows the kind of staying power of the West Coast. That was mid '90s, and then fast forward to 2013, Alex Smith gets traded to that West Coast offense with the Chiefs. Yeah.
Well, and then Andy putting his little spin of I was going to say the run and shoot, but that's not the right offense. The pistol with Alex, somebody who grew up playing in the shotgun at Utah, and was very comfortable with it. So, and then obviously that translated very nicely to Mahomes.
Right, and now he's doing a kind of a hybrid air raid system from the Mahomes Tech days.
Right.
Well, let's talk about Andy Reid for a second. He was your quarterbacks coach in Green Bay, correct?
He was.
And you kind of mentioned you were happy for Andy. I'm sure playing for him and knowing how he's been through. Went to multiple NFC championships with the Eagles, never actually winning one. Going to the Super Bowl, not winning it. But kind of talking about how happy you were for Andy, but also this kind of marriage between Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and how special that really is with a talent like Patrick Mahomes, and knowing the kind of the offensive mind, the QB whisperer as they call Andy Reid.
Andy, yeah, having had to coach Brett Favre, after that, I think he felt like he could coach anybody, and he could. No, Andy's a terrific man. I only played for him for a year, but enjoyed him very much. Kind of a no nonsense guy, but with a very dry sense of humor about it. So we got along well, and then obviously I followed him quite a bit when he was with the Eagles, having grown up an Eagles fan, and obviously a city that's not the easiest place to coach or play in. Now WP has to deal with it, but no, Andy just the right personality. I think learned a lot from Holmgren on how to deal with people, a people person. So like I said, knowing how to deal with people, and then obviously he saw something in Mahomes, hence the reason he drafted him so high, traded up to get him. He saw something that not many others did. I only say that. I don't say that because a lot of other people didn't. I say that because Andy saw something special. He saw that that it factor, so to speak, and that's a testament to Andy.
Yeah. No, and I guess kind of the way, you were saying how he kind of molded the pistol offense, because, that was Alex Smith's strength. And, he's kind of molding this like hybrid air raid West Coast system with Mahomes. Kind of speaks to kind of the coach that he is, that he can adapt from 97 football to 2020 football,
He really has, and adapted well. And like I said, that speaks highly of Andy. And I also, going back to your point of, speaks to how what's the word? How resilient the West Coast offense is, and that it's basically been around for pretty much 40 years, and has been able to people have been able to adjust it to fit the game.
Right.
The era of the game, I should probably say.
Yeah, and I guess this kind of goes to my next question. So one of the questions I want to ask you is that, you played baseball at UCLA. You were a catcher. And we're starting to see, and it's always been kind of that parallel with quarterbacks and baseball, especially pitchers and catchers, that we're seeing guys who are kind of coming out, Kyler Murray being one, a huge prospect in your area, Bay Area, and Patrick Mahomes, who grew up in baseball, was a baseball player, decided to choose football over baseball.
Yeah.
You're kind of, how has, I guess, in a way, for a quarterback who played baseball also, how did playing baseball help you develop as a quarterback? And I know I have a nephew who's trying to play, who's going through all the QB conditioning stuff right now, going to his quarterback trainer, but he doesn't play baseball. And a lot of the guys he does play with are baseball players. How would you say that kind of helped you become a better quarterback playing baseball?
Oh, I'm not so sure Coach Donahue would say that there was anything that was better about baseball helped me in football. You know what? That's a really good question. Having tried to do it myself, watching somebody like Mahomes or some of the other guys go through it. Having coached my son kind of through it, coached him as a quarterback on his high school team. Ended up playing baseball at UCLA. I think that it's funny. I think that and I always told my son this, that if he took I think it helps in reverse, maybe more in my head, and that was, I told my son that if he took the football work ethic to baseball, it would definitely behoove him. and I think he did do that. He was a hard worker anyway. For me, gosh, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have ended up as a catcher had I stuck with baseball. I probably would have ended up in the outfield because somebody who was 6'4" trying to be a catcher back in the early 80s was probably not going to stick there.
And you're quite an athletic guy, too, on top of
A la Jay Schrader, somebody who, was drafted extremely high by the Blue Jays back in 1980 or 79. Played quarterback at UCLA, played for the Redskins. Ended up as an outfielder. I don't know. There's probably more than anything, probably just the cross training, doing something different. These kids get so many kids today. They get stuck on one sport early and get burned out. That's probably the biggest thing that I can think of is just doing something different and different different training. The thing that worries me the most, always you talked about your nephew, is guys throwing a baseball and guys throwing a football at the same time. They ended up with arm problems. Obviously 2 different weights, 2 different motions. So that's to me the thing that I would worry about most.
You're saying in the same season doing football and baseball?
Summer, and especially in the summertime, like now when kids are, obviously kids aren't playing baseball. I guess some leagues around the country are playing. Right. College kids or high school kids, and then they're playing weekend tournaments, baseball tournaments, and during the week they're, working out with their high school football teams. Not happening here in California, but right now. But that's what I worry about. Just the different motions and the different weights of the ball that can crank on a young guy's arm.
Right. Now, are you surprised with the amount of players who are like Kyler Murray, who did choose? He could have gone to the Oakland A's, but he didn't. He went to the draft. Are you kind of surprised the amount of guys who are choosing the NFL over MLB? What do you think about injury risks and the guaranteed money aspect of it?
No, not surprised anymore. Back, probably in my time, you would be surprised because of the baseball is guaranteed money. Football has a lot more guaranteed money. But I don't know if there's much more of a thrill than playing quarterback in the NFL. So I get why those guys chose it.
Yeah, for sure. I would do this. I would do the same if I was given a choice. So let's talk about the 49ers for a second. How do you expect the Niners to kind of bounce back this year? And how can also coming so close to tasting victory, how can that really impact the team?
I think they will bounce back. Obviously you never know. I go back to my experience, unfortunately, in Kansas City of losing in the playoffs and then came back the next year and we were average. We were 8-8. And I remember having a conversation with later on years later with Carl Peterson about that maybe we didn't change enough. We because we were good one year and we tried to keep that same team, that there needs, I think the lesson learned was that there needs to be a little bit of change, that the identity needs to reestablish itself. And I think the Niners have had enough of a change. They had the big trade with DeForest Buckner, which I wish didn't have to happen. But I think they'll be good again. Do they have that drive? Obviously, this season is going to be different. The most unique of the 101 seasons for everybody. and who can truly motivate themselves from within, not only individually but collectively. But I think they'll be good again. But they still have a lot of good players. They're going to some of the young receivers are going to have to step up.
Right. I mean, and we saw Deebo Samuel come on last year, and he may have to lost him.
Yeah, but he's a guy that's broke his foot or his ankle, foot I think it was in the off season. So how soon does he come back?
Yeah, and especially you don't want to rush that back, because what kind of injuries that could cause down the line if you rush like an injury like that back with the foot as a receiver.
With a foot, yeah, with all that pressure that foot is taking, stopping and starting on routes.
Mm. Now there was a question I wanted to ask you. You had a unique situation where you were with Joe Montana in San Francisco, and then you got to be with him in Kansas City. Now, there's a guy who was with the team for the last 20 or so years with Tom Brady, who was with New England for so long, and now he's going to a new kind of area altogether, going to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
How did seeing Joe go from San Francisco to Kansas City, was that kind of new, being in a new area, new surroundings, good for him? And do you think that could benefit Tom Brady? And do you kind of see the parallels there between Montana and Tom?
I know. I'll start by saying I know that Joe recommended that Brady not go. It's not an easy transition. Brady will probably do it better than 99% of us. But there's an adjustment of obviously guys on the team, where you're living, just the whole thing is takes some time to adjust to. Will Tampa be better with him? Probably. I don't think he's going to make them worse. Right. So I think they are a pretty good team. It was kind of the same. Joe went there. They were the Chiefs in '93. They were a pretty good team. So Joe, helped them get over the hump, get in the playoffs. But there's definitely plenty of adjustment, and I think that is the reason why, Joe. I saw Joe make a comment that, I think he should stay. But I'm sure Brady's, he got antsy. Let me see if I can do this somewhere else. He's with a great players coach, I think, in Arians in Tampa. I don't know Arians, but I know he's been around for a long time, and guys seem to like playing for him.
Right.
So that makes the transition a little bit easier, but he'll do. I think he'll do fine, just like Joe did.
Right, and I think it's one of those things. That this is what they say. Is that Belichick wanted to see if he could win by himself, and I think Brady wanted to prove that he could win without Belichick.
Yeah.
And that's the competitive nature of especially playing quarterback.
Exactly. But the combination was pretty damn good.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're gonna go to the final segment, the final 40-yard dash is what I call it. Nice play.
I did see those. Those were pretty funny.
Okay, so what was your fastest 40-yard dash? It's a question I ask everybody.
That was my only prepared statement. 4.79. I did make it under 4.8.
Awesome. 4.79. That's great. Especially back in the day where people try to say, I guess the more mobile quarterbacks from nowadays, which but I guess it's true in a way. I mean, you also had Randall Cunningham back in the day, but 4.79.
Randall was in my class, and that was running. He could run. He and somebody like Steve, who was technically, I guess, would have been in my class had it not been for Well, he technically was because he played in the USFL for a couple years and then came to the NFL in '85 also. But someone like Steve or Randall, they could run.
Was the combine back in the day like it was now? Were you like in line with Randall Cunningham?
So I don't remember Randall being there. I'm sure he was. He wasn't in my group. But we were truly part of the first combine, which was which in 1985 it happened in February of '85 at ASU in Tempe.
Oh, wow.
But the combine was basically a combination of the two scouting services back then. So that's where that name combine comes from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty much how it is what we see on TV on NFL Network. Is it?
Yeah. We didn't really know what we. Yeah, I guess we knew a little bit of what we were going to have to do. We knew we were going to have to do well, we didn't have to do the bench press. We could opt out of the bench press stuff. Which, if a quarterback did that, how would you throw after that? I'm not sure. But we had to stand up there in our underwear and get prodded and tweaked by every doctor on every team, and then do all the 40 and throw and the shuttle and all those kinds of things. So yes, we worked out before we went there, but we didn't necessarily train for it because we didn't really know everything we were going to have to do.
Interesting. I didn't know you were part of the first inaugural class of the
1985. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Okay. So next question here, a little trivia question. In 1995, you had 5 rushing touchdowns. What Chiefs running back tied you for the team lead in rushing touchdowns?
Had to be Marcus.
Yep. Marcus Allen.
You got to give it to Marcus. Ties Walter Payton third on the all-time list, touchdown number 125. The eyes have it, Tommy.
Yeah, Marcus Allen, one of the best ever at getting the ball into the end zone. He has great instincts once he's inside the 5-yard line.
So you own 2 Chiefs quarterback records, and they still stand to this day. What are they? One you're tied with Joe Montana on one of them.
I honestly, those I thought about but I honestly have no idea.
So most passing attempts in a game at 55, which is crazy because you think the passing era now, you think Mahomes would have had that.
Well, because we were getting our, handed to us in Miami that night, and we kept having to throw the ball.
You remember this?
It was not a great night.
Steve Bono in his 10th professional season with Pittsburgh, with San Francisco, with Minnesota, but he's made only a dozen starts.
A couple bags of IV fluid afterwards. I think I felt a little better. The other record, I have no idea.
Other records: longest run for a longest run for a touchdown by a quarterback in Kansas City history.
Okay, yeah, that I guess, yeah. Nobody else played there. Well, I'm sure Patrick will break that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that run he had in the playoffs against the Titans. I mean, I didn't know he could do some what he did in that. He looked like a running back there. He looked like Marcus Allen there.
Yeah, nobody was chasing me, so it was easy.
Steve Bono, look at this. Joe Valeria out in front says, "Go Steve, go Steve, go Steve, go Steve." Steve's huffing, he's puffing, he's running. Steve Bono's at the 20. Steve Bono's at the 10. 76 yards and a touchdown, the longest run for a touchdown in the history of the National Football League, Tommy.
Okay, so next question here. On ESPN's NFL Primetime, Chris Berman gave you probably my personal favorite nickname of all time. What was it?
He would tell you his favorite as well. I got you, babe. Because he said he always got to sing the song.
That's classic. When I was growing up, I remember my brothers would show me that one. And when I told my brother I was actually interviewing you today, he goes, "Steve, I got you, babe, Bono." I was like, "Yep, that's actually one of the questions."
Brings it down to the Raider 11-yard line. 3rd and 3. Steve, I got you, babe, Bono, to L. Dawson. A Chief named L. Dawson.
So, okay, you played with legends Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Brett Favre. Do you have any interesting stories about those guys? I know Favre, I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have a million about that guy.
I got a lot of them, but I can't tell any of them publicly. No. No, actually one of my favorite, one of the lines that I quote more than anything, by a former teammate, is a Tommy Kramer line. When I was a rookie, we were playing in Detroit, and Tommy came to us. It was a timeout. Tommy was a streaky player, very good quarterback, and we had gone up and down the field a couple times in a row, I think, and scored, and Detroit finally called a timeout. Tommy came to the sideline, and Wade Wilson and I were standing there. Tommy licked his arm like that and goes, "Sweat and whiskey, boy, it's going to be a good day."
That's fantastic.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh man! At what point in the game what was that?
It was early. I mean, it was maybe the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second. But and I'm going to say we were already up 14-0. I'd have to go back and research that, which I don't know if I could ever find it. But anyway, that was one of my all-time favorite lines during the game.
That's awesome.
If I thought hard enough about it, Brett, I'm sure Brett had plenty of them.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I was interviewing Mark Bowrichter the other day. He was a Chiefs receiver, then he ended up playing for the Packers for a little bit. He said he was at practice. He was running a curl route. He said Favre threw it over his head, so he jumped up for it. And he said he hurt his middle finger. Goes in. He said he knew he broke it in some way. So he goes to get an X-ray. Brett, he comes out of the X-ray room. Brett's waiting out there for him. He goes, "So, what was the prognosis?" And he goes, "Hairline fracture in my finger." He goes, "Damn." He goes, "I must be getting old. I used to blow those fingers off." And I can only imagine how far probably said that.
He was a character. He's a character, no question. He had a lot of great one-liners. Joe was more the not that Brett was, but Joe was more the prankster.
Really?
Oh yeah.
My favorite Joe Montana story was, I think it was the Cincinnati, right before the drive. I think everyone's sitting in the huddle, and he goes, "Hey guys, is that John Candy over there?"
Yeah.
It doesn't get better than that.
I know. Yeah. No, he was. He was the prankster.
And was Steve? Was he a prankster or no?
No, Steve's pretty serious. Yeah, he just went about his business. Yeah.
You can kind of see that on ESPN. He can kind of sticks to the line.
Yeah.
There. Just talks football. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
So the last question here is, you kind of alluded to it earlier. This is kind of the weirdest seasons we've ever had in 101 years of football. What's one piece of advice you would tell NFL players as they start a season that's just kind of going to be the strangest they'll ever play and that we'll ever watch?
Yeah. I've found myself saying this a couple times just to people, asking, well, gosh, what's the season going to be like? And I said, well, it takes a lot of discipline to play football anyway, but this is going to be like the ultimate discipline of, all you want to do is like go out to a restaurant, go have a few beers after a game on Sunday night. But I mean, you're going to have to go home. I think this will be the ultimate test of what team collectively has the most discipline. None of us know. None of us have been through this. To not have fans in the stands. It's going to be really strange. But I ultimately think it comes down to who can abstain from from partying.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it that big of a factor, that the fan aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the greatest, coming out of the tunnel in a stadium, and the roar of the crowd on Sunday. I mean, that's what you play for. I mean, obviously we play for one another more than anything, but that's the icing on the cake.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, maybe they'll pipe all that in for guys when they're coming out of the tunnel, but it's gonna be strange. No question.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. I hope the season lasts throughout. I hope there's no stoppage. I mean, that's the one thing. I hope all these guys are healthy.
Yeah.
And I hope, these guys take care of themselves. Once the game's over, go home and kind of.
Yeah. And they're going to have to create their own bubbles, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Steve, it was really lovely having you on. I hope to bring you on at some point during the year to kind of talk some shop in the midst of the regular season.
That would be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun, because I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Hopefully there is. Hopefully there's no stoppage in week 4 or anything like that.
Yeah, I hope not. And it'll be unique for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. And I look forward to having you on again, Steve.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you coming on.
All right, thanks, Marcus.
Have a good one, Steve.
Take care.
You too.